There will also be many functional improvements that both Microsoft and Tangicloud are putting into this next release that you'll be moving on to. Here's just a couple of teasers, something from Microsoft, which I love and is actually a very useful capability, is let's say I'm managing a list of vendors or items or funds, etc. in the system, and basically you forgot to do something where maybe you mistyped your cities or you didn't enter your cities as you can see in my demo data, I completely neglected to do that. You now also have the ability to take your data and say edit in Excel. You're used to doing data open in Excel for taking general ledger entries and investigating them. The edit in Excel becomes a super capability in the system. You do need to be using Office 365 to do that because this connects into your Office 365 Excel instance and credentials. And when we open up this sheet here, the vendor card, it'll take all the data that I have in my vendor list. Again, I would, normally I'd probably filter that down, possibly, but let's say I just want to manage all my vendors. And I forgot to do things like enter cities and states rather than going through each vendor record at a time. I can actually edit that data in my spreadsheet. It does take a while to refresh and populate over here because it's actually real time connecting our data from Business Central into Microsoft Excel. Notice it's retrieving the data, setting up column headers, refreshing the data, and obviously the more records you have, the slightly longer this will take to populate. I did not filter anything down. So now let's say I forgot to enter city, state, etc. I can go ahead and use Excel now to edit the data. Let's go ahead and hide a few columns here because I don't care about some of these per se. And I want to add all my names and addresses. So I can go ahead and just quickly um, use Excel to go through my records. Obviously, you can set your filters and freeze your panes, etc. And once I'm finishing editing my data, also, I could have maybe messed up my default fund number in the system, and I want to mass change that. I could go ahead and say, let's go ahead and change. I'm not going to do this because I don't really want to change these setups. But I can do change FO1 to FO3, change all that data, and then when I'm done, I hit the publish button, and the publish will connect back into my Business Central. It will check and make sure that the values I've entered are valid and correct. And you notice it went ahead and published back in the system. So if I go back in here and refresh my list, by the way, the F5 key is the universal refresh key within Business Central to refresh a page in the system. And you notice all my addresses have been changed for those first three records that I edited. So the edit in Excel is a tremendous productivity aid in terms of being able to use the Power Excel, being able to mass changes, edits, etc., do edits in a list view, and then just save that data back versus opening one record at a time and changing the system information. So editing Excel is one of my favorite features. The other favorite features is, I've helped customers in the past use QuickBooks, and it always used to sort of annoy me that in QuickBooks I could do things like connect my banks to a download service where I can actually download my transactions instead of having to import them or even worse, manually enter them. So when you move on to this latest version of Business Central, you'll also be able to connect almost every bank in North America, US and Canada, and some across the world. You should be able to find most banks are eligible for connection unless the bank is obviously being obtuse and they're not helping the Yodlee service that's used to connect your data and download your transactions. This will make your bank reconciliations radically better and easier. So again, there are also many additional points of functionality that you're going to get. And as you can tell, your day-to-day use of the system is pretty much the way you use the system today, except you have all these extra layers of functionality coming into play to make your joy and wonderment in using Business Central and Tangicloud's fundamentals application even better than it's ever been.